Let It Be. Like many other Beatles songs is steeped in lore. The title track from the Beatles' 12th and final studio album, the song has a ton of different versions. But today, we're gonna talk about the two main ones. The single version, produced by George Martin, and the album version, produced by Phil Spector. They're kind of similar, but at the same time, there's a ton of differences. Which one's your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. Now we're gonna break down the differences from a fundamental standpoint, but first, let's talk about the origin story. This song actually started before they started recording the Abbey Road album. Paul McCartney had a dream in 1968 where his mama came to him and told him everything was gonna be all right, to relax, and to let it be. This was in reference to the stress the band was under. Although the four hadn't stopped recording, they hadn't played live since 1966 in San Francisco, California. They had reportedly grown tired of the fans being so loud that they couldn't even hear themselves play. Ringo said in an interview that they felt like they had just come to see them. They weren't coming to actually hear their music. This fervor would be called Beatlemania. And Beatlemania is actually a word. I was typing that into my computer and it wanted to autocorrect for me to Beatlemania. Like that's how big of a deal this was. That Microsoft and Google know what it is. Here's a picture of the amps the guys were using live. They're 100-watt heads with 12-inch speakers in it. Now those things get loud. Can you imagine how much louder the crowd had to be that the band couldn't even hear themselves play? That had to be insane. Paul McCartney references his mama in the second line of the first verse, "Mother Mary comes to me." Now there's been a lot of controversy over years as to what it means. Is he talking about Mother Mary from the Bible or is he talking about his mother? Her name was Mary. And he said in numerous interviews that Mother Mary was to signify his mama, but he lets the listener have their own interpretation of it. Originally, this album was going to be titled Get Back, to signify getting back to their roots, playing live as a band in the studio with as little overdubs as possible. They even shot an album cover for it to look just like their very first album, Please Please Me. It would later be changed kind of symbolically to Let It Be. But as we're gonna see with the title track, Let It Be, they couldn't let nothing be. Both songs were produced and produced and produced with God knows how many remixes all jumbled in together. They both start off with Paul McCartney playing his piano in a C major progression. C, G, A minor, F, C, G, F, and then with some embellishments back to C. Then Ringo's hi-hat comes in after the first chorus into the second verse. John Lennon's actually making a pretty rare performance on a Fender offset 6-string bass. Then they brought in pianist Billy Preston to play electric organ on the track as well. Each track also has the remnants of an earlier guitar solo played by Harrison, and try as they might, they couldn't get rid of it. This would be referred to as the ghost solo to Let It Be. And if you listen really closely to both versions, you can hear it. Now I've found a track with George Harrison's guitar muted on it and you can hear the ghost solo on it. Let's take a listen. They couldn't get rid of it, most likely due to the fact that the other microphones in the room as they were recording picked it up. So it's there to stay. Produced by longtime Beatles producer George Martin, George Harrison is using his custom Rosewood Telecaster played through a Leslie preamp into a Leslie rotating speaker. This is actually from take 27A. It's a beautiful solo played in C major pentatonic. My buddy over at Play That Guitar on YouTube was kind enough to lend me a performance of the iconic solo. Version was produced by Phil Spector, and he took 4 different remixes and put them all together. One of the earliest differences that you can hear is he put a delay to Ringo's hi-hat.
And when the broken-hearted people...
He also took the background vocals from the single version that actually had Linda McCartney on it and just about muted all of them. You can even hear cellos, you can hear violins, you can hear a bunch of orchestral instruments on this version too. A couple months after the single was released, George Harrison thought, I could have done better. So he went in and re-recorded the solo. And nobody really knows what guitar he used. There's actually some footage of him warming up on Rocky, his 1961 Fender Stratocaster. To my ear, I hear some fuzz, and it's way more rocked out than the previous version. And only thing that I could find about this is he may have used a fuzz face into his Fender Twin. And just like the previous version, he's stuck to playing the C major pentatonic throughout the whole solo. Now I ain't got a 61 Strat, a vintage fuzz face, or a vintage Fender.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
But I was able to mess around with what I got, and I think I made it sound okay. Let's take a listen to the album version. Now, as you could hear, both solos could not be any more different. But George Harrison was incredible at playing the chord changes. And if you listen closely, you can hear him target each chord tone as they pass by. And George Harrison was a master at this. Now, the album Let It Be would be their 12th and final studio album, with Paul publicly quitting the band like a month before its release. One thing's for certain though is that their music has stood the test of time, this song being one of many examples. Both versions are great tracks, and these definitely aren't the only ones. Now there's an entire rabbit hole on YouTube if you want to type in Let It Be different versions if you got a couple days to spare. I picked these two because they're two of the most iconic ones. Which one's your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And run up and bear hug that like button if you learned something new today. You know what? Just run up and bear hug it anyways, because it's lonely down there. And as always, I'm the world's okayest guitar player. And remember, practice doesn't necessarily make you perfect, but it can make you okay. We'll see you on the next one.